When a major franchise has a new release on a console, it feels like an event. It's viewed as something that moves the series forward, as an indispensable chapter in its history. But when a major franchise comes to a portable system, well, the feeling tends to be different. They usually arrive in the form of experimental spin-offs or remakes. Rather than events, they're often incongruous, irrelevant, and insignificant. But this one's different. This is no irrelevant spin-off. It was everything its console-based predecessor was, and more. This is a real, actual, honest-to-goodness sequel. This is Metroid II: Return of Samus. And this is anything but insignificant. Developed and released exclusively for the Game Boy in 1991, Metroid II isn't your typical handheld afterthought. One of the major differences between this title and a game like Metroid Prime Hunters, for example, is that Return of Samus is canon. The story arc of the whole series, including the real sequels for consoles, is built upon foundations that were laid in this puny, puke-green, and most importantly, portable game. Metroid 2 is really in a genre all its own. It's not a platform game and it's not an action game, but it does include the primary components of both. Well, first and foremost in any Metroid title is the importance of exploration, an emphasis that's as clear in this game as even Super Metroid or Metroid Prime. And speaking of which, Return of Samus picks up in the immediate aftermath of the Metroid Prime trilogy. Bounty hunter Samus Aran has prevented the nefarious space pirates from carrying out their plans to harness the power of the dangerous life forms known as Metroids. But to make sure the Metroid threat is over, Samus goes to the species' homeworld, the desolate planet SR388, to destroy those that remain. Now, in addition to being just about the coolest f***ing story ever, it also sets up both a perfect stage for the eerie, otherworldly isolation so characteristic of the series, and an interesting premise for the gameplay. There are nearly 40 Metroids hiding within the dark, labyrinthine bowels of SR388, and it's up to you to locate and exterminate. This gives Metroid 2 a very different feel than its predecessor. The first Metroid was deliberately vague. You had no idea what was going on or where to go, and that really created this overwhelming sense of dread. But in Metroid 2, your objective is clear. In fact, the game's even more linear. You feel a little more in control this time, at least until unexpected events dictate a sudden change in plans. A Metroid 2 does an incredible job of setting the mood you'd expect from a Metroid title, both because of its premise and gameplay, but also from a technical perspective. The graphics aren't great even for the platform, but they do work. SR388 feels like exactly the kind of barren, cavernous world that would be hospitable for Metroids, and you never quite feel comfortable there. And a lot of that has to do with the claustrophobic effect of the Game Boy's limited frame. A Metroid 2 is much more zoomed in than any other side-scrolling Metroid game, and as much as that's a shortcoming, it's also kind of a benefit. On the one hand, you can't see a whole lot of your surroundings, which does make exploration and combat a bit more difficult, but on the other hand, it really drives that trademark Metroid dread home. The passages are narrow, it's hard to breathe. I mean, this is what Metroid's all about. This game is really unique in that it's an essential part of its franchise's lineage. You can't just skip Metroid 2 in the same way Super Mario Bros. 3 goes straight to Super Mario World and skips Super Mario Land, at least in terms of the actual Nintendo lineage. This isn't Super Mario Land. With all due respect to the plumber, Metroid 2: Return of Samus is in a whole different league. A portable title as eerie, as desolate, and as downright Metroid as any you can play on your television.